Mace Windu's fall from the Chancellery during the chaotic confrontation with Darth Sidious was as sudden as it was catastrophic. The Jedi Master, once resolute in his belief in the Republic and the Jedi Order, had been thrown from the height of Coruscant's skyline, an agonizing surge of lightning pulsing through his body as he plummeted it into the depths of the city. But in this scenario, Mace Windu doesn't die. Against all odds, he survives the fall, his body broken but his will intact, clinging to consciousness just enough to reach out with the Force. Tumbling into the tangled underbelly of Coruscant, Windu's journey of survival and reckoning begins. As he regains consciousness in a dark alley, battered and barely alive, Mace's mind is a torrent of confusion and rage. The betrayal, the failure, the revelation that the Dark Lord had been under their noses all along, it's too much. Pain flares from every muscle, every bone, his right arm seared beyond repair, but his mind remains sharp. Using the Force, he senses his surroundings, feeling the vibrations of the city, the pulse of 1,000 lives moving above and around him. It's a surreal landscape, far removed from the polished halls of the Jedi Temple or the hallowed Senate chambers. For the first time, Mace feels the sheer magnitude of the world outside the Jedi Order's reach. In his weakened state, he knows he can't return to the Jedi Temple immediately. Sidious will undoubtedly have spun his tale by now, painting the Jedi as traitors, possibly ordering clones to execute Order 66. Trusting in the Force to guide him, he pulls himself upright, staggering through the labyrinthine passages of Coruscant's lower levels. The pain is unbearable, but Mace uses his training to focus his mind, dulling the agony as he plots his next move. He can't risk using his lightsaber; it would draw attention he can't afford. Instead, he wraps himself in the Force, moving with stealth and caution. As days pass, Mace fades into the shadows, surviving by grit and sheer willpower. He mingles with the inhabitants of Coruscant's seedy underworld, his mind constantly at war with itself. Thoughts of revenge and regret plague him, but he recognizes that vengeance is a path that leads only to more darkness. Instead, he steels himself with a new purpose. Sidious, or Palpatine as he had pretended to be, was a threat to not only the Jedi but to the entire galaxy. Mace's survival is a sign from the Force. He reasons a calling to take up the fight against the Dark Lord in a way the Jedi had never attempted before. With limited resources, he scavenges, finding rags and makeshift garments to mask his appearance. His face, once the stern and recognizable visage of the Jedi Council's most formidable warrior, is now obscured, hidden from the world. He lives like the downtrodden, experiencing firsthand the suffering of those abandoned by the Republic. The irony is not lost on him as a Jedi. He had preached compassion and understanding, but had been far removed from the struggles of ordinary beings. Now, cut off from the Order, stripped of his power and his identity, he is forced to confront the failures not only of the Jedi Order but of his own actions. Mace's resolve hardens with each passing day, his purpose crystallizing in the darkness. He begins to reach out, subtly and carefully, sensing disturbances in the Force, seeking out fragments of intelligence. Rumors begin to reach him, whispers of the Jedi Purge, news of clone troopers turning on their Jedi generals across the galaxy. Mace is sickened, haunted by visions of his comrades, friends, and pupils being slaughtered in cold blood. The guilt gnaws at him, but he knows he must resist despair. As he absorbs the reality of what has transpired, he understands the need for a different approach. He can't rely on the traditional methods of the Jedi or the teachings of the Council. Those ways are gone, scattered in the ashes of the Purge. This is a battle he must wage from the shadows, employing unconventional means to weaken Sidious's grip on power. Mace senses an awakening within himself, a shift in his perception of the Force. In the past, he had adhered strictly to the Jedi Code, priding himself on his discipline and restraint. But here, in the depths of Coruscant, he confronts the raw, chaotic energies of the dark side, feeling its allure more than ever. The darkness calls to him, whispering promises of vengeance, strength, and retribution. But Mace knows better. He channels the anger, the bitterness, letting them fuel his resolve rather than consume him. His mastery of Vop had a lightsaber form that thrived on the edge of light, and dark serves him well now, helping him maintain a fragile balance. He realizes he can use his rage as a tool, without letting it corrupt him. It's a dangerous line to walk, but one he's uniquely suited to navigate. In time, Mace starts to gather information on Sidious's movements, noting patterns and weaknesses. His former prowess in intelligence gathering, honed in years of Jedi service, resurfaces as he builds a small network of informants. He becomes a ghost, a shadow that weaves through Coruscant's underbelly, making connections with those disenfranchised by the Empire's rise. These are people who have suffered under the Republic's indifference and now endure the Empire's iron grip. To them, Mace Windu is not a Jedi Knight but a figure of defiance, a symbol of hope in a time of despair. Although he doesn't reveal his identity, his actions and presence inspire quiet whispers of rebellion. Mace knows he cannot face Sidious directly, not in his current state, nor would he be able to sway the masses to rise up against the new Emperor. But he can undermine Sidious's empire in subtle ways. He starts by gathering intelligence on the clones, learning about the biochips that compelled them to turn on the Jedi. He studies the behavior of the Imperial officers and begins identifying those who could be turned, or at the very least, made to doubt the Empire's righteousness. His strategy is no longer about direct confrontation, it's about planting seeds of resistance, of discontent, in the heart of the Empire itself. Every so often, Mace allows himself to contemplate what might have happened if he had succeeded in defeating Sidious in the Chancellery, if he had been able to prevent this nightmare from unfolding. But he pushes those thoughts aside. The past is unchangeable, and he must focus on the present. He cannot allow personal vendettas to cloud his judgment. Instead, he channels his guilt and regret into his mission, letting them drive him to continue the fight in whatever way he can. It is during one of these quiet moments of reflection that Mace senses a flicker in the Force, something familiar yet distant, a glimmer of light piercing through the darkness. He realizes, with a start, that it's another Jedi survivors of the Purge, scattered across the galaxy, each fighting their own battles. Driven by this newfound hope, Mace taps into the Force, extending his consciousness as far as he dares, searching for any sign of other Jedi who might have survived. Each flicker represents a potential ally, a beacon in the sea of darkness that now engulfs the galaxy. But the task is fraught with risk. Reaching out too boldly could alert Sidious to his survival. Mace moves cautiously, allowing only the faintest whispers of his presence to brush against the Force. He senses others like him, Jedi hiding in exile, clinging to survival amid the Empire's hunt. Each pulse gives him strength, a reminder that he is not truly alone. Days turn to weeks, and Mace's influence in Coruscant's underworld grows subtly but steadily. He adopts various identities and disguises, blending into the environment, a man with no name and no past, but with a fierce determination. He learns of small pockets of resistance forming on other planets, whispers of discontent among those disillusioned by the Empire's brutality. Knowing that his own power is limited, he chooses his battles carefully, nudging events from the shadows, hoping to inspire others to stand against the growing tyranny. During one of his reconnaissance missions, Mace discovers a shipment of kyber crystals being funneled through a secretive Imperial project. Kyber crystals, the heart of Jedi lightsabers, were now being repurposed to fuel a new kind of weapon. The implications are chilling, but Mace realizes that the crystals could also be a lifeline to any surviving Jedi who may have lost their weapons in the Purge. Driven by this dual purpose, he begins working to intercept the shipment, hoping to use it both to disrupt Sidious's plans and to potentially provide the crystals to others who might still fight the Empire. Mace's efforts are not without challenges. On one occasion, he narrowly escapes detection when a squad of Imperial soldiers, suspicious of his movements, confronts him in a dimly lit alley. Devoid of his lightsaber, Mace relies on his physical prowess and mastery of hand-to-hand combat, dispatching the soldiers swiftly and silently. But he's reminded of his vulnerability, a stark contrast to his former life as a Jedi Master, wielding the authority and strength of the Order. Now, every move he makes requires careful calculation. Each decision carries the weight of survival. In these moments, Mace feels the toll of his solitary mission, a quiet exhaustion that lingers but never overtakes his resolve. He eventually establishes contact with a former Republic intelligence officer named Valen, who is disgruntled with the Empire and willing to aid him, albeit reluctantly. Through Valen, Mace learns of secret Imperial facilities and manages to pinpoint other kyber crystal transport routes. Together, they form a tenuous alliance. Valen sees Mace as more than a relic of the fallen Jedi Order. He sees him as a vital link to a cause that the Republic abandoned. Mace, in turn, senses potential in Val in a man who might yet be swayed to believe in something greater than himself. In his quiet moments, Mace reflects on the Jedi Order's past mistakes, the rigid adherence to doctrine that had, in some ways, blinded them to the subtle manipulations of the dark side. Sidious had exploited their rigidity, their unwillingness to adapt. Now, Mace sees the need for a new approach, a more flexible path that balances light and dark without succumbing to the shadows. He begins to redefine his understanding of the Force, blending his Vapad mastery with a tempered acceptance of the emotional spectrum he had once avoided. This newfound philosophy guides him as he maneuvers through Coruscant's criminal networks, avoiding detection while building a quiet network of informants and allies. As the weeks turn into months, Mace finds himself in possession of critical intelligence. He learns of an impending meeting between high-ranking Imperial officials, one that Sidious himself is rumored to attend. Such an opportunity is unprecedented, but Mace knows the risks. He debates whether to intervene directly, perhaps even assassinate Sidious if the chance arises. But he quickly realizes that to do so would only further consolidate power in the hands of Sidious's supporters. An abrupt power vacuum could lead to chaos, and without a strong plan, the galaxy could spiral further into darkness. Instead, Mace devises a plan to sabotage the meeting, planting seeds of mistrust among Sidious's inner circle. He carefully leaks information to his contacts within the Empire, each message suggesting hidden agendas and power plays. His actions stoke paranoia among Sidious's allies, creating fractures within the Empire's command structure. It's a subtle attack, but one that aligns with Mace's new approach. He understands now that he cannot rely solely on brute strength or lightsaber prowess. This is a different war, one fought with patience, manipulation, and the careful application of power. During one quiet evening, while concealed in an abandoned building overlooking the Imperial Palace, Mace senses another presence in the Force, a strong, unfamiliar energy that pulses with anger and turmoil. He realizes with a start that it's a Force sensitive, perhaps a surviving Jedi, or even someone untouched by the teachings of the Order. Driven by curiosity and a sense of duty, he begins to investigate, tracking the individual through the crowded alleys and bustling markets. It's a long pursuit, but he eventually comes face to face with a young man named Karos, a street-savvy Corusant native who had discovered his sensitivity to the Force amid the upheaval of the Empire's rise. Karos is fierce and untamed, his connection to the Force raw and volatile. He wields no lightsaber, nor does he adhere to the teachings of the Jedi, but his potential is unmistakable. Mace sees in him a reflection of himself, a reminder of the paths he might have taken if not for the strict discipline of the Jedi Order. The two form an uneasy alliance, and Mace takes it upon himself to teach Karos some control, guiding him in basic techniques to channel his power. However, he refrains from burdening the young man with Jedi philosophy. Instead, he emphasizes survival, resilience, and the importance of balance. In time, Karos proves to be a valuable ally, his street knowledge and agility complementing Mace's more refined skills. Together, they disrupt Imperial operations on a small scale, sabotaging supply lines and intercepting communications. They become a rumor, whispered about in Coruscant's lower levels, a mysterious duo who fight back against the Empire, operating from the shadows. The alliance with Karos rekindles something in Mace, a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. He realizes that, while the Jedi Order may be gone, its ideals live on in those who choose to resist. As Mace and Karos continue their campaign, they begin to attract the attention of the Imperial authorities. Sidious himself senses a disturbance, a faint echo of the Jedi he had presumed defeated. The Emperor's agents grow more vigilant, and the Inquisitors are dispatched to hunt down the elusive rebels. Mace knows that the day will come when he must confront Sidious again, but he no longer feels the same burning rage. Instead, he is calm, his resolve tempered by the hardships he has endured and the allies he has found. He understands now that victory may never come in the form of a decisive battle, but rather in the countless acts of defiance that inspire others to fight. As the quiet resistance grows, Mace realizes that his presence on Coruscant may be reaching a tipping point. The Empire is tightening its grip, and rumors of the mysterious shadow warrior lurking in the underbelly of Coruscant begin to spread. Mace knows that his survival depends on staying hidden, but he also understands that he can't continue in isolation. He needs allies, people he can trust, individuals willing to risk everything to defy the Empire. It's then that he decides to reach out to a few other surviving Jedi he has sensed across the galaxy, each struggling to evade the Empire's reach. Sending messages through Valen's covert channels, Mace carefully crafts coded signals intended to reach Jedi in hiding. The messages are subtle, designed to attract only those attuned to the Force, but each one carries a message of hope, urging the Jedi to come together once more. His call echoes through the Force, and over the next few weeks, several Jedi cautiously respond, drawn by the promise of a safe haven and the potential for resistance. These Jedi, scattered and broken, come to Corusant in secret, slipping through the Empire's defenses to join Mace in the heart of the enemy's stronghold. Among them are Jedi who have witnessed unimaginable horrors during the Purge, their spirits bruised but unbroken. There's Master Salera, a skilled healer who has been hiding on the fringes of Imperial space, offering aid to refugees displaced by the Empire. There's also Kalen, a former Padawan with a fierce determination to avenge his fallen master, his youthful anger tempered by a newfound resolve to protect the innocent. Each brings their own scars and their own skills, and Mace finds himself in the role of mentor, guiding them as he once guided his fellow Jedi. He knows they can't operate as they once did the Jedi Order, as it was, no longer exists. But together they form a new alliance, a network of survivors dedicated to opposing Sidious in whatever way they can. In secret, Mace begins training them, not as Jedi of the Old Order but as warriors of the shadows. He teaches them to move unnoticed, to strike only when necessary, and to embrace a more fluid approach to the Force. The lessons are grueling, and Mace pushes them to their limits, understanding that only the strongest will survive this dark age. Vapad, the lightsaber form he had mastered, becomes a focal point of their training, though he adapts it to fit their unique circumstances. He teaches them how to channel their anger and fear without allowing it to consume them, to find strength in the darkness without succumbing to it. These Jedi become something new guardians bound not by the code but by a shared purpose. Their efforts begin to yield results. They sabotage key Imperial installations, disrupt communications, and gather critical intelligence on the Empire's operations. Every strike, though small, sends ripples through the Force, and Sidious feels each one, growing increasingly agitated by the persistent disturbances. But the Emperor is a master of patience, and rather than send his full might against them, he chooses a more insidious approach, dispatching his Inquisitors to hunt down these rogue Jedi. The Inquisitors, dark agents trained in the ways of the Sith, become a constant threat, forcing Mace and his allies to stay one step ahead, to remain ever vigilant. As the months pass, the bond between Mace and his newfound comrades deepens. Each of them has lost everything, but together they form a family of sorts, united by shared purpose and a sense of belonging that transcends their individual pain. In the quiet moments, they share stories of the Jedi Temple, of friends and mentors lost to the Empire's purge. Mace tells them tales of Yoda, Obi-Wan, and the countless others who had fought to uphold the light. But he also warns them of the hubris that led to the Jedi's downfall, urging them to learn from the Order's mistakes. Meanwhile, Karos, the young Force-sensitive Mace had taken under his wing, grows in strength and skill. Though not trained as a traditional Jedi, he absorbs Mace's teachings with fervor, his raw power and streetwise tactics proving invaluable in their operations. Mace sees in Karos a successor, someone who might carry on their mission, even if he himself were to fall. But he also senses the darkness that simmers within the young man, a tempest of anger and sorrow, born from a life of hardship and loss. Karos is drawn to Mace's power and wisdom, but he also wrestles with a desire for vengeance that at times threatens to overwhelm him. Mace knows he must guide Karos carefully, ensuring that he does not succumb to the same rage that fueled Sidious's rise. One fateful night, while scouting an Imperial facility rumored to house critical intelligence, Mace and his allies uncover plans for a terrifying new weapon, the Death Star. The scale of the project is staggering, a weapon designed to enforce the Empire's dominance across the galaxy through sheer terror. Mace realizes that this weapon could be the ultimate instrument of control, a means for Sidious to solidify his power beyond any opposition. The knowledge fills him with dread, but he also recognizes an opportunity. If they can leak the plans to the rebellion, a small but growing force of dissidents opposed to the Empire, they might be able to rally more systems to their cause. However, the mission to retrieve the plans goes awry. Imperial forces intercept them, and a fierce battle ensues. Mace and his allies fight with the ferocity born of desperation, their lightsabers flashing through the darkness as they cut down stormtroopers and inquisitors alike. But the Empire's forces are overwhelming, and one by one, Mace's comrades fall, sacrificing themselves to allow him and Karos to escape with the stolen data. The losses are devastating, and Mace feels the weight of each life extinguished, a bitter reminder of the cost of their resistance. In the aftermath of the mission, Mace is racked with grief. He retreats into solitude, questioning the path he has taken, wondering if their defiance is worth the bloodshed. But Karos, now hardened by the loss of their comrades, refuses to let him give in to despair. The young man's resolve is unshaken. He sees their fallen allies as martyrs for a greater cause, a sacrifice necessary to ignite the flame of rebellion. Karos's words rekindle something in Mace, a flicker of hope amid the darkness. He realizes that, though they are few, their actions resonate across the galaxy. Each strike, each act of defiance, inspires others to rise against the Empire's oppression. They send the Death Star plans to the fledgling rebellion, and in doing so, Mace accepts that he may never see the weapon destroyed, that his fight may continue in the hands of others long after he is gone. His mission, he realizes, is not to defeat the Empire single-handedly, but to ensure that the light survives, that the ideals of the Jedi endure, even in this dark age. He comes to terms with his place in this struggle, embracing the role of mentor and guide, a shadow warrior who will prepare the next generation for the battles to come. In the days that follow, Mace and Karos continue their campaign, striking from the shadows, a lingering thorn in the Empire's side. Sidious grows increasingly frustrated, aware that the Jedi he thought defeated still poses a threat to his plans. But Mace is no longer driven by anger or a desire for revenge. He has found peace in the struggle, a quiet strength that sustains him even as he faces insurmountable odds. His purpose is clear, his path illuminated by the sacrifices of those who have fallen and the hope of those who continue the fight. As the galaxy spirals deeper into the grip of the Empire, Mace Windu becomes a legend, a symbol of resistance whispered about in the darkest corners of the galaxy. And though he may never see the end of the Empire, he knows that his actions have sown the seeds of hope, a legacy that will endure long after he is gone. In the depths of Corusant, he watches the stars and feels the force flowing around him, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always light. And with that knowledge, he continues his fight, a lone warrior against the shadow, knowing that one day the dawn will come,